Hello, everybody. My name is Nataki Garrett. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the 6th artistic director of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and I am so very happy to be here today. Thank you. So in preparation for this speech, I searched the internet to see how many times Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King used the word future in his speeches or writings. I've been thinking and talking about the future a lot lately, thinking about the world that my 1-year-old baby niece Noah will inherit, and what I need to do to make sure it's worthy of how special she is. I've been thinking about the future of this country and whether or not the country as we know it will survive and evolve so that the babies of today will grow up with the freedoms I long to experience. I think about the future of the American theater and if it will still be relevant and to whom and why. I think about the future because I am driven by the mandate that I must be active in making sure there is one. That is what is expected of me. So Dr. King rarely, if ever, speaks the word future in his speeches or writings, unless it is to warn folks of the damning that will occur if they don't change. Yet we all live as if we work to sacrifice to ensure that we would have a future. We spend this special day, this hard-fought-for day, this day of remembering his ultimate sacrifice, working, celebrating, and/or shopping, as if his sacrifice was some sort of great plan he had to give us this day. We listen to the mountaintop speech and imagine he was seeing into the future, a future that did not include himself. When my father was working for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC, he told me that when he was a young man, he knew he could die a young man. That at any given moment, he could die because he was trying to help register people to vote in Mississippi and Alabama. He tells me from his experience in those days, the Klan was a different kind of brazen. Not dressed up in suits, not called white nationalists marching around a Confederate statue with tiki torches. They showed up at bus depots and bashed in the faces of young white women and the heads of young people of all races, from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, for daring to cross the Mason-Dixon line together with their talk of equality. I met a man a while back, a white guy in his 70s maybe. He was my Lyft driver in San Francisco. And he had told me he had had his head bashed in with a club and his skull fractured when his Freedom bus coming from Los Angeles pulled into a depot in rural Louisiana and was greeted by a mob of angry white people with clubs and bats at the ready. Despite the warning and the training he had received, he said he never believed he could be killed for what he was doing, or he never would have done it. When I asked why he got on the bus, he said it was too important. It was something that he knew he must do. He also joked that he was following a girl. The Klan and the white citizens' councils across the South made it clear that they were willing to hurt, maim, or kill any black person who tried to vote or any other person who worked to help someone else vote. All throughout the struggle for civil rights, people risked their lives to protest against the laws that kept them as second-class citizens. Simply walking up to the registrar for a registration card could get you lynched in the rural areas. It could get you assassinated in your driveway in the city. Gathering to talk about the possibility of trying to vote could get your house or your church bombed and your children murdered. My father didn't have the luxury of disbelief. He was working to eradicate the apartheid-like system that affected his lives and the lives of so many around him. Now imagine being not even 20 and thinking, oh, okay, I could die for this. That sounds pretty immediate to me. You know, the immediate of how limited choices were between fighting for freedom and living free. If living free for a moment meant dying in the immediate next moment, then my father, born in Dallas, raised in Watts, he was ready. So why didn't Dr. King speak future? That's my question. Perhaps it was because the work that was being done at the time was about the present. What if thinking about the future was too far ahead? If we can't make sure the present is free, then how will we make sure the future will be free? And what is the present? We like to tell the story of the civil rights movement as if it was a magical time when people marched and yelled protest slogans and sang protest songs from jail cells, from streets. We conflate the memory of all that they were fighting for. We skip the mundanities of what the fight for freedom and equality was about. Freedom is being able to walk home from church on a Sunday and not be gang raped by your neighbors like Miss Reese Taylor. Freedom is not having to prove your innocence from a crime you were nowhere near when it was committed, like Walter McMillan. Freedom is not being set up from your first day of school to be incarcerated because you are a black child. Freedom is walking home from a bar in this town and knowing you will make it home. Freedom is food, clothing, and shelter when you don't have it. It's the ability to read the words off a page because you have literacy. It is access to a job, a good job, that pays the rent and all the bills. It is about having secure housing. It is as simple as knowing that you can live in your body and know that it is being seen as fully human, not an anomaly or something to be objectified or fetishized or ostracized. You can give your name, the name your parents gave you, without being othered. Oh, what an odd name, or that's unusual. To be clear, all names are usual or unusual someplace in the world. Freedom is knowing you can walk into a theater and watch a play and not be smacked by your neighbor because you dared to laugh out loud or sing the song you've known since childhood. Freedom is immediate because freedom is now. It is immediate because it is life. Yeah, right? Let me find my place. So, what if Dr. King didn't see himself as a martyr like some see him now? What does it say about his life or what he fought for? What does it change in your perception when you read the letters from a Birmingham jail or listen to his speeches? See, I like to imagine the way he loved his children and family was immediate. Can you imagine kissing your child at night and knowing you would have to die for them to be free? Nah. I like to imagine Dr. King kissing his children at night with the full belief that what he was fighting for, so the next day when he kissed them, it would be in their full freedom. I believed he hugged his children with the dream that in the morning they could wake up in a better world in which they could live in their full dynamic complexities without ever having to wonder if they will ever be seen as a criminal or now die unarmed at the hands of a police officer or have a purse clutched tighter at the sight of them or otherwise be singled out or othered or ostracized or forced to carry the short-sighted bias of so many. I believe Dr. King wanted to change the change that he was fighting for to be immediate so that he could see in his children's faces and know the joy in of the moment could no longer be dampened because of Jim Crow, poll tax, discrimination, or worse, ambivalence. I believe Dr. King wanted to live and wanted to experience the world he described so famously in his speeches. I believe Dr. King led others through boycotts and beatings, marches, fire hoses, jail cells, because he wanted to walk amongst us in the light of the new day. I believe he longed to see his children and your children moving beyond the limitations of racism, bias, sexism, and ableism. I believe he was fighting to be here when poverty was eradicated, or at least no longer criminalized, or when despair, which often shows up as substance abuse, was no longer police, and instead its root causes were treated. I believe I dreamed that Dr. King believed he was leading America up a road to justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, equality, and peace, and in which all religions, heritages, cultures, nationalities were welcomed to cross our borders. And I dream that Dr. King believed that by now, the intersections between us would have been forged and fortified when people not only claimed to see one's color or the difference from themselves, but also knew how to honor those differences and were grateful for the opportunity to connect through diversity. And I believed he was assassinated because he wanted to help change the course of a nation chaotically careening towards a time that looks a lot like now. We began last year with photos of children as young as 2 months old as they were being separated from their parents at our southern border and forced to live in detention. Children live in detention across America. Right now, foster children live in detention centers in America. But these children came with their parents to seek a better life, and instead were ripped from their arms and placed in tents and on cement floors under aluminum blankets en masse. More than 5,400, they think, so far. Children have their birthdays and holidays and first periods in cages and tents, and finished out the new year in those conditions, and some will never be reunited with their families. Those children are our future. By the way, trans women are still being murdered at an alarming rate. Hundreds of Black women and children have gone missing across this country. Native women are 5 times more likely than any other woman to be murdered in this country. And suicide is the leading cause of death amongst young people, especially gay youth. This is 2020. Right now, a little under 10,000 people are homeless in the state of Oregon, a little under 100,000 in California, and over 500,000 nationwide live homeless. Most major cities have lots of tent communities that resemble the Hoovervilles of the Depression, the same Hoovervilles that many of your parents and my grandparents experienced in their youth and fought to eradicate in their time. Last week, 4 women, all mothers, were forcibly evicted from their home in Oakland, California. Law enforcement deployed riot gear and a small tank to remove 4 women and their children from a home. Onto the street. Yes. We live in a country, come on, be with me. We live in a country where people believe that wealth is a sign of intelligence and poverty is a sign of bad choices. Where fires burn across the world because of excuseless excesses we refuse to eliminate from our way of life. Where we still spend more on war than we do on feeding programs. Where your loved ones can be killed protesting a rally against white nationalism at the hands of white supremacists, and your president will say there were bad people on both sides. We are not in King's dream. Dr. King died just as he was starting a new campaign that was to be focused on poverty. There are some who say that he was assassinated because he was planning on using his work to connect and support poor people of all races. A social justice campaign where people work together to eradicate poverty. Yes, I said social justice, which is a word that some folks are allergic to. But it remains the only word we can use to describe the work that must be done, the work that we must do so that we can live in a work where the work is no longer needed. Some of you who marched in People's Park in Berkeley or joined the Students for a Democratic Society in college, you know what I mean. You fought to live in a country in which you could see civil rights legislation passing, voting rights passed, abortion rights and Title IV enacted. You marched and shouted against the Vietnam War and against nuclear arms and for labor rights and free speech. Your generation taught my generation that we were all on the way to the promised land that Dr. King described for us. And you know more than I do that there is work that still needs to be done if we are going to create that promise. And I will work to create it because I want my baby niece Noah to live in that world. I want to see her face and experience her joy in that world. I do not accept that I cannot live in that world without her, and neither should you. We have what we need to make that world a reality. And I know we can do it because we must. Like my less than 20-year-old father, we must. Like the mothers and fathers who crossed our southern border to give their children a better life, we must. Like Dr. Geneva Craig, we must. Like the Lyft driver, we must. And like Dr. King, we must build a brighter present before we can build towards a brighter future. So today, right now, in this moment, let's be like Dr. King. Let's speak to the present. Let's speak to the present. The present we will work to bring into existence. Then, let's get our tools, roll up our sleeves, and begin the work. Don't look to your neighbor to reverse climate change. Look at yourself. Don't sit by when you see someone being accosted because of their race, age, class, or color. Get in the middle of it. Don't allow your ignorance of what to do to stop you from deepening your knowledge and building your toolbox. Get educated. Don't be quiet when someone assaults another in the theater. Interrupt the policing of youth in our theaters, or they won't return. Send your dollars to support the causes you believe in. You may have marched with your sisters on Sunday, but what will you do today to make it matter? Don't allow cynicism to keep you quiet and fearful and passive. Get up and get to work. The future, this future here waits for our action today. Be present and build the promise we all deserve. Build the present Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed we would have and dreamed he would experience had he survived. Build the promise today so we can live in the promise tomorrow. Thank you.